Day 1, you're still laughing with your friends saying, man, I haven't slept since yesterday. Day 2, your hands start shaking every time you pick up another cup of coffee. And by day 3, around 2 a.m., you start seeing shadows in the corner of the room that aren't actually there. This isn't a horror story. This is what happens to your brain and body when you actually push through 72 hours without sleep. And science can explain exactly why it gets that bad. Let's start at the beginning, because the damage doesn't wait until day 3. It starts almost immediately, by hour 16. So if you woke up at 7 a.m., that's around 11 p.m. the same day. Your brain is already operating below its normal baseline. Reaction time slows down. Focus becomes harder to hold on to. You've probably felt this before, that late night mental fog where reading the same sentence twice still doesn't make it stick. By hour 24, you've officially been awake for a full day. And here's the part that surprises most people. Your cognitive performance is now comparable to having a blood alcohol level of about 0.10%. That's higher than the legal limit to drive in most countries. You're not drunk, but your brain is behaving like you are. Slower judgment, delayed reflexes, mood swings that come out of nowhere. At this stage, your body is already fighting back. It's producing more cortisol, the stress hormone, trying to keep you alert through sheer chemical force. That's why you might feel a strange burst of energy around this point. A second wind, but it's not your body recovering, it's your body panicking. This is where things start to shift from uncomfortable to genuinely concerning. Your immune system starts weakening. Studies on sleep deprivation show that after just one full night without sleep, natural killer cell activity and the cells responsible for fighting off viruses and abnormal cells in your body drops significantly. Your body is quite literally less equipped to defend itself. Your hormones start going haywire too. Ghrelin, the hormone that makes you feel hungry, spikes. Leptin, the hormone that tells you you're full, drops. This is part of why people who are sleep deprived tend to crave sugary, high-calorie food. Your body is trying to compensate for the lack of rest with a shortcut: fast energy. By hour 36, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, impulse control, and rational thought, starts to lose communication with the rest of your brain. This is the point where people begin making choices they wouldn't normally make, saying things without a filter, struggling to weigh consequences properly. And then there's the temperature drop. Your body's internal thermoregulation starts to falter, and your core temperature drops slightly. This is one of the reasons people who pull all-nighters often report feeling suddenly cold, even in a warm room. By hour 48, 2 full days in, microsleeps begin. These are brief, involuntary lapses into sleep that last anywhere from a fraction of a second to about 30 seconds. The unsettling part is that you often don't even realize it's happening. Your eyes might stay open. You might even be mid-sentence. Your brain just briefly shuts a section of itself off without asking permission. This is the stretch where things stop being just physically exhausting and start becoming genuinely strange. Around hour 60, many people begin experiencing what's called sleep deprivation-induced psychosis-like symptoms. Not full psychosis in the clinical sense, but the early edges of it. Visual distortions, a feeling that the walls are subtly moving, objects appearing to shift shape at the corner of your vision. This happens because your brain is starting to blur the line between REM sleep and waking consciousness. Normally, REM sleep, the stage where dreaming happens, is neatly contained while you're unconscious. But under extreme sleep deprivation, fragments of REM activity start leaking into your waking state. In simple terms, your brain starts dreaming while you're still awake, and your senses can't always tell the difference. By hour 65 to 70, this can escalate into full hallucinations. Some people report hearing voices, others see people or shapes that aren't there. There have been documented case studies of extreme sleep deprivation experiments where participants became convinced of things that weren't remotely true. Paranoid thoughts, a feeling of being watched, or profound confusion about what was real and what wasn't. Your coordination also takes a massive hit during this window. Motor skills that are normally automatic, and walking in a straight line, catching something thrown at you, even holding a pen steadily, and become noticeably impaired. This is part of why extreme sleep deprivation has been compared, in terms of impairment, to being legally intoxicated well beyond the safe threshold. Then there's the emotional volatility. At this stage, the amygdala, the brain's emotional response center, becomes hyperactive, while its connection to the prefrontal cortex, which normally keeps emotional reactions in check, weakens even further. The result is emotional reactions that are disproportionate to what's actually happening. A minor inconvenience can suddenly feel devastating. A small joke can trigger uncontrollable laughter, or just as easily, tears. By hour 72, the full 3 days, most people are in a state where holding a normal conversation becomes genuinely difficult. out. Speech can become slurred or disorganized. Memory formation is deeply impaired, meaning that a lot of what happens during this window may not even be properly remembered afterward. It's not just that you're tired, it's that the machinery your brain uses to process, store, and respond to the world is running in a severely degraded state. So why does the brain fall apart this specific way? Sleep isn't just rest, it's an active maintenance process. During deep sleep, your brain runs something researchers call the glymphatic system, essentially a cleaning cycle that flushes out metabolic waste products that build up in brain tissue throughout the day, including a protein called beta amyloid, which is linked to neurodegenerative conditions when it accumulates over long periods. When you don't sleep, that cleanup never happens. The waste keeps building up. This is part of why prolonged sleep deprivation doesn't just make you feel foggy, it's genuinely leaving byproducts in your brain that would normally be cleared away. At the same time, your neurons themselves start struggling to communicate efficiently. Neurotransmitter levels shift, energy metabolism in brain cells becomes less efficient, and the communication between different brain regions, which normally work in a coordinated, synchronized way, starts to desynchronize. That desynchronization is part of what produces the disorientation, the hallucinations, and the impaired judgment. Your body is essentially built on the assumption that it will get regular recovery windows. Everything from immune function to hormone regulation to cognitive processing depends on that cycle happening. 3 days without it doesn't just delay that maintenance. It actively pushes multiple systems into a state they were never designed to sustain. Here's the part that might surprise you. Your body doesn't need 3 full days of sleep to recover from 3 days without it. Most of the acute cognitive effects, reaction time, short-term memory, emotional regulation, start improving significantly after a single night of solid, uninterrupted sleep. Full recovery of things like immune function and hormonal balance typically takes a few days longer, but it's not a one-to-one trade. You're not in debt for 72 hours of sleep. Your body prioritizes catching up on deep sleep first, because that's where the most critical repair processes happen. That said, repeated cycles of extreme sleep deprivation, doing this over and over rather than as a one-off, is where the real long-term risk shows up. Chronic sleep deprivation has been linked in research to increased risk of cardiovascular issues, weakened long-term immune function, and a higher likelihood of developing mood disorders over time. A single 72-hour stretch is rough, but survivable for most healthy people. Making it a habit is a different story entirely. Somewhere between hour 48 and hour 72, your brain stops just being tired and starts genuinely struggling to tell you what's real. It's not weakness, it's not a lack of willpower, it's your brain doing exactly what it's supposed to do when you take away the one thing it depends on most to function properly. And that, in a strange way, is the most human part of this whole thing. How fast the mind that makes you can start to unravel just by taking away something as simple as rest.